I just hit record. Welcome everybody to our Great Start Parents Meeting. We're glad you could make the time to be here tonight in light of the decisions recently made by TCAPS about our GSRP program. We've convened this meeting tonight to get parent voice at the table and help everyone get a sense of what's going on and what are our next steps forward. So with that, I'd like to welcome you. And just to get you oriented to the Zoom screen, I know many of us have had a lot of calls, a lot of Zoom time. I don't want to assume that everybody has those. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the chat feature. And please use, we'll be using that tonight to leave some comments, but also feel free to mute yourself when you're not speaking. If you could mute yourself, that will be helpful, just so that we can hear the words of those who will be sharing messages with us tonight. But I do want to welcome you and give you a chance to introduce yourself. We have approximately 12 of us on the call. We will probably be letting more people in as we go. But just to kind of go down the line and just tell us your name and the county of residence, and if you could also share with us what brings you to the meeting tonight. What are you here to learn about? So I can kind of pick on people. Dana, I'll kind of start with you if that's okay. So just go ahead and unmute yourself, and we'll kind of go around and see who's here.
I'm Dana Tuller, and I live in the very edge of Grand Traverse County, almost to Benzie County. And I have 5 kids. One of them is in the waiting room for GSRP for next year, and we are in TCAPS as our home school. So I'm trying to figure out how we can get GSRP for him for next year, because he is eligible for Young Fives, but I don't think he's ready for Young Fives. So we just need to figure that out. What are we going to do?
Excellent. Thank you. Camera, would you like to go next?
I'm new to this. I've never used this thing. Okay, I'm Camera. I live in Chums, Grand Traverse County. My kids go to Blair. I have 3 wonderful little boys. Oliver, my oldest, went through GSRP 2 years ago. He'd be going into 1st grade this year. And then Eli is hopefully going to GSRP this fall. And then Lucas would be starting next fall. And I think it's very important. Out of all of my kids, I think Eli really needs GSRP before he starts school. But yeah.
Great. Thank you. Glad you could join us. Suzanne, would you like to go next?
I'm Suzanne Threet. I kind of took on lead parent at Groen before pandemic. And my youngest didn't qualify for GSRP, so we used play groups for that. And just a program that I don't want to see go away.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Glad you're here tonight, Suzanne. Anna, you want to go next?
Yes. Yeah. Hi. My name is Anna Fryer. I am a multi-site coordinator for Teddy Bear here in town. And I'm here because I'm fully supporting the GSRP program and trying to find solutions that will help support bring that back and or provide spaces for those children with lower incomes that need the GSRP, and also just to kind of support that earlier learning, because we know kindergarten readiness is extremely important.
Excellent. Thank you, Anna. Glad you're here tonight. Tammy, how about you?
Hi, I'm Tammy Walsh, and I have 3 boys as well. 2 of them that's already been through the GSRP program, and then my little one will be going into next year as well. And I do, again, strongly believe that GSRP was a big help in getting them ready for kindergarten.
Thanks, Tammy. Great to see you tonight. Paula, would you like to go next?
My computer mic isn't very good. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, awesome. My name is Paula Dixon, and I'm actually the GSRP teacher in Alba in Antrim County. I was horrified to find out that TCAPS took you guys away. And so I'm here hopefully to sit in and just learn, you know, in case it happens to us, in case it happens to other people I know, what are the choices, what can we do?
Great. Thank you for being here tonight.
Yeah.
Paula. Rachel, you're next.
Hey, I'm Rachel. I'm a TCAPS employee right now. I am big into the early childhood education stuff. I used to be in early childhood in some private daycares, and when I heard what TCAPS did, I really wanted to kind of reach out and hear and listen and see, because I know there's a lot of great daycares out there and preschools that maybe aren't TCAPS but can offer our families extra help that need it.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. We're glad you're here tonight. Next, we have some other people who, how about Amy? I see Amy here. Do you want to introduce yourself and help us know where you're from and what you're hoping to get from tonight? Amy, can you hear us? All right. Well, we'll give her a, we'll assume we'll try to come back to you, Amy. Maybe now it's not the best moment. I see Bill Freilich on the line. Bill, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you here tonight?
Hey, Missy and everybody. I'm Bill Freilich. I actually am a reporter with 9 and 10 News, and I've interviewed Missy and Mary, and I talked to Dana last week about the issue, and so just kind of curious to get the latest update. I've got 2 kids, but they are beyond this age at this point. So mostly as a concerned parent, generally speaking, and as a member of the media, just trying to stay informed. So thanks for the invite.
Thanks, Bill. We're glad you're here with us tonight. Next, how about Josie? I see you out there.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Sorry, my husband's sitting next to me, so we have a bad audio feedback right now, so I'm going to move a little bit. But yeah, hi, I'm Josie Ballinger, and I am a parent of 2 TCAPS students, one going into 4th grade and one going into 7th grade now. So I'm also out of the woods in terms of having little ones, but I nonetheless care about all students' well-being, and I am a candidate for the TCAPS school board this year. I spoke there, and what do you know? Now this came up at a board meeting a week ago, so I too am trying to gather the facts and learn all sides and try to stay together. So that I can understand what's going on, if there are any alternatives to, alternative solutions to the program for next year. I will hold up for TCAPS to accommodate these 100 to 150 students, where as provider or not. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you've got to share, Missy. Thank you.
Josie, thanks for joining us tonight. All right, well, I think that concludes our introduction. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to give you all a sense of what we're going to try to get through in the next hour. So bear with me here. And we're going to head over to this, and I'll get us on our screen here. Okay, so here we are. This is kind of our agenda tonight. It's a nice, a little visual. We just got through our welcome. We're kind of starting in the bottom left-hand corner. We're going to be kind of wobbling back and forth. I chose this graphic it just seems like there's a lot of waves and there's some light shining, and so I'm hoping that we can together figure out a path as parents and developing parent voices to ride us through these waves and figure out what are some next steps? But I want to refresh you just on our purpose as the Great Start Parents Group. I know some of you attend regularly, some of you do not, but the purpose of the Great Start Parents Group, Coalition, you'll hear it referred to as, is that we provide a customer real-time parenting perspective to agencies and organizations in our region. The job of this parent group is also to educate others about the importance of early childhood, and we support the work of the Great Start Collaborative and 5 to 1. Also providing information, education, and resources to parents. So that just helps provide you with a frame for our work within the Parent Coalition. And so whether it's something of an urgent matter such as this, but we are always doing the work of early childhood with what we do. So that said, we have some outcomes for tonight's meeting. And outcomes for tonight is really to give you some familiarity with the early childhood system with regard to the structure of the Great Start Readiness Program, and give you a chance to voice your concerns and ask questions about GSRP. We've brought on Yvonne Donohoe with us tonight, our Director of Early Childhood with TBA ISD. And so she'll be here to answer some questions. And then from there, we would like to spend more time of our meeting getting to brainstorm ways in which parents can work together to form a collective response in support of GSRP. And then also just understanding the work of Great Start Parents and some of our other current work and how you can be part of it and connect to it at another time. So if you wouldn't mind going into the chat box, we're going to give those of you a little practice with Zoom. If you could go into the chat and go ahead and type the number of an outcome that you're looking forward to tonight, or something that's more of particular interest to you. And we'll have Mary Manor is also here on the call. Mary, I'm sorry I didn't officially ask you to introduce yourself. I'd like to do that once I get everybody back on the same screen, but she will also be acting as our kind of a moderator tonight to help us navigate some of the chat aspects and so forth. So if you wouldn't mind going ahead and enter the number of the outcome that interests you the most about tonight's meeting. We will zoom out. Our next, I'm going to go back to our, so those are our outcomes. I'm going to go into Yvonne's segment of the meeting. And Yvonne, I'm sharing the screen, and you can just tell me when you'd like to me to forward the slides, but I'm going to turn the meeting over now to Yvonne Donohoe to explain to us about the Great Start Readiness Program overview and the bulleted points you see listed on the screen.
Great, thanks Missy, I really appreciate that, and really glad to see parents here in the room as well as some of our providers in the region. Big shout out to our GSRP teachers that are on the call as well. So Missy asked me to talk just a little bit about GSRP, and so I'm open to hearing what questions you have. I thought I would do a broad overview, and so you can put questions into the chat, or Missy, if you can even help me to sort of monitor just for hand raises. If folks have questions, that'll be really, really helpful. So overall structure, we'll talk a little bit about the funding, and then really, again, how you as parents might be able to share your voice around the topic to make sure that we're doing the right things for our kids in the region. So let's see, Missy, I think I'm ready for that first slide. Yep.
Yeah. All right, you good?
So the program has been around for a long time. It's been around since 1985. Folks that were in service at that time would remember it as the Michigan School Readiness Program. So it operated, we used to have programming that was sort of state aid formula funding, and then there was a competitive grant side of the program. Local districts ran, we had programs like Leelanau Children's Center that operated that other piece of the programming. Of course, it's aimed at our 4-year-olds in the state of Michigan. And the risk factors have changed over time. There used to be, 17 categorical risk factors, and you would key in based on that largely at this point in time. The primary factor utilized is income. In 11-12, I was really fortunate to be at Traverse Bay Intermediate School when there was a legislative designation that intermediate school districts then at that time begin to operate GSRP programs on behalf of Michigan Department of Education. We didn't operate in 11-12 as an ISD. Again, all of our school districts and regional partners were operating at that time. But there was a real big vision around expanding programming and really expanding the quality components. So Michigan Department of Ed had approximately 3 or 4 staff who was running hundreds of GSRP programs across the state, and understanding that there were capacity issues, really thought that intermediate school districts were in a good position to be able to step in and support local districts and community partners in operating these 4-year-old programs. Missy, next slide if you would. So I thought this might be of interest to folks. So 12-13 was the first year then after that legislative designation that TBA ISD was involved with the program. And so year after year, you'll see those are slots over time. Those some of you may be familiar. GSRP can be operated as either a half day or a full day slot. It takes 2 slots. So that's not, those numbers aren't per kid. Those are 2 makes a full day slot, 1 is a half day slot. So we know that in 13-14 and 14-15, we had huge investments from the state of Michigan in our young preschoolers. So you'll see those big increases at that time, a whole lot of flat opportunity in the middle, and just a tiny bump over this past year. So as slots grew, we saw large increases in GSRP operation throughout the region. I think originally we had 13 GSRP classrooms, and at this point in time, we alternate between about 48 and 50 classrooms within our 5 county regions. So my 7-year-old is asking me to please protect his fuzzy animal while the dog's around. So it's an important task.
You ready for the next one? Okay. Oops.
Yvonne, you're muted.
You're muted, Yvonne.
Thanks. I muted just so you didn't have to hear our nighttime ritual, but thanks. I appreciate that. So partners, as those slots increase, we actually do an application process. We are soliciting to community-based organizations, those who run licensed childcare, as well as our local districts, to see who has interest and capacity to operate those programs. And then we utilize a 5-county representative group to select the those operators for the upcoming year. So more and more subcontractors were added on, and throughout that process, there was a legislative requirement also requiring 30% of our partners to be community-based organizations, non-school entities. All right, Missy, I think I'm ready for the next slide.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a little bit of context around what that sort of looks like. So in fiscal year 20, that $249.6 million, that's the whole state kind of allocation for GSRP programming. In comparison to sort of like our K-12, there's about $1 billion per grade. As we are looking at first grade costs the state of Michigan about $1 billion. Second grade costs about, the same. So, it sits roughly at about 1/4% of funding that our K-12 universal services would be looking at. And then that 3625 is the the allocation for a half-day service for students. So just to offer a little perspective about what that funding looks like for our partners and for the ISD. Next slide, Missy.
Here we go.
Okay. So Missy and I have talked an awful lot, and I've seen great parent stories and great parent experience at board meetings and coming across during interviews over the last couple of weeks. And Missy and I were sort of talking about what that means. What does it mean around GSRP and how parents could be involved? I'd love to hear your ideas. This is really where I would get really humble. I can't, I'm always so impressed by the ways that parents reach out and our supports and educators in the community around what it's like to be raising young kids and families. I had some ideas about what this could look like, right? So at the state level, right, at our more local level, what that would look like, and then at a personal level, what it looks like for you all. And so we talked through just that idea that at the state level, there continues to be a need for more preschool services. So we saw those big increases, back in 13, 14, 14, 15, and a lot of flat funding. Pre-pandemic, as part of the governor's platform, we were anticipating, really hopefully, for increases to GSRP that we're no longer so hopeful in anticipating at this point in time. And so thinking about kind of from a more broad lens, supporting broad changes in funding for GSRP that get us close to that K-12 par. The current per child allocation for K-12 is over $8,000, and they tend to receive, while they do receive cuts at times, nobody has to re-advocate for each one of those grade levels in the same way that preschool services or early childhood services have to do that within the budget process. At the local level, again, and some of you have already done some of this work, talking to your building level administrators, talking to your school board members, and I mean certainly when there are times of cuts, but for me the story of how powerful early childhood and GSRP experiences are important things for school board members to hear, even when we're not in a time of cut. Even when we're in a place where everything is really great. It's just an easy, I think it's an easy thing at time to sort of take for granted around how, there isn't anyone who's on this call that doesn't value early childhood. So I sometimes forget that that's not a universal thought and that sometimes it feels like we're no longer in an at-risk funding category until you see a local school board remove it from, their programming platform for the next year. So being willing to talk to school boards in good times and bad, I think is really an important piece. And I think, Missy, I had added to the slide, but the last one was just at a personal level. And for me, part of this is for those who are seeking childcare, being able to be connected with concrete resources in the community to ensure that if you're looking for GSRP access, that we get you access in the highest quality program as accessible to you as possible for as many families as we possibly can as we look at the next school year. And also just sharing your stories. So again, just that piece around those who've utilized GSRP, those who were anticipating, those who have neighbors and friends. I hear from families and from our teachers often about the impact that has not only on the child, but on the family structure, the relief of not having to pay for childcare, the good feelings around having a child that's had a great educational experience, and now you're very ready and feeling prepared and confident about sending them to kindergarten. So just being able to know your story and share it with others in a way that can be impactful. So those are the slides that I prepared tonight.
Great.
So I would, go ahead.
Oh, we have a little bit of a delay in our connection tonight, so hopefully we can all keep up with that. Now's the time we're going to open it up for some questions from parents for you, Yvonne, about that are more directly answerable about some of the content you've seen about GSRP program structure, financing. You can use the chat, or you can we can work out a system here. I'm looking at Suzanne's asked a question, and Suzanne, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? Or do you want me to answer for you?
Well, we're so used to GSRP, I guess, in TCAPS for those of us that are in this area. My question is, are there restrictions to where GSRP can be held? Because Yvonne said that some preschools have been able to get this money. We have private schools, we have charter schools here, we have community centers that we've been trying to build as a 5-to-1. Honestly, I don't want to see any of our GSRP classrooms go back into a TCAP school because I don't want to be charged for that. And I think that's one of the articles I read, that was one of the things of, if anyone wants to take GSRP, you're more than welcome to come to and use our school. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to pay rent to TCAPs who didn't want us. So I want to know where we can put a GSRP classroom that is beneficial to the community and the parents and the schools. And I know that's difficult when your kid isn't at the same school as your older kids, but that's one of the questions I have.
Those options look like.
Yeah. I would think that's a great place to start. I don't know, maybe I'm way out of the way.
You're not at all, Suzanne. It's a great question. Thanks for asking it. So the restriction simply is that it's in a licensed childcare setting, right? So a licensable, so they don't even have to currently be licensed, although I think by the state doesn't require that. As the intermediate school district, we're asking for folks to have had 1 year of licensed care experience under their belt before applying. So that application process. But we've served with Teddy Bear daycare, right, as a community base with Anna in the past at a great high quality community based center with the YMCA. We're lucky enough to still be partnering with community based childcare such as Forest Area Early Learning Center and Leelanau Children's Center. So licensing is really the requirement. You know, more than 70% of our sites take place within local schools. 70% are school operators, but then we have Kalkaska Memorial Intergenerational Center operates childcare on Bel Air's property, right? So Bel Air Elementary School. And West Michigan Community Action Agency operates on in Elk Rapids at their Mill Creek Elementary School. Suzanne, you sort of mentioned the reason they tend to do that is because it does provide some respite for parents in the way of just time and in some cases transportation. So you can put them on the public bus and not, or on the school bus, not a public bus, but a school bus with their siblings, and they can arrive at school. So drop-offs and pickups, it's not required. You know, Kalkaska Memorial Intergenerational Center also operates a hospital-based program where those students attend within the context of a community hospital childcare, and GSRP operates there, and there is no busing, right? So I think that, you know, they offer care for infants and toddlers. So if you don't have a flock of school-age kids and you've got little ones, that might be a good option. So to your point, there might be a great community partner out there. There may be a great licensed childcare provider out there that's considering. We did send, working hand in hand with Candace Hamill from our Great Start to Quality Resource Center any child care provider in our 5-county region that would have been rated at a 3-star. So knowing that GSRP is a high quality program. And we did letters of interest 2 weeks ago, I guess, to sort of inquire about who else might be interested. So whether they choose to operate in a TCAPS building or they choose to operate in their own facilities. Does that answer the question, Suzanne? Great, thank you.
And Yvonne, what I wanted to also add to that is we certainly would have a lot of interest in becoming one of those programs. Unfortunately, at this time, my staff are in school, but they've got their CDAs and their associate's degrees. And so I, managing all 3 centers, just could not put myself in a classroom to do that. And then the other staff that do have a bachelor's or higher are at that director level right now. So that's the biggest reason that we're unable to do it at this point, or we absolutely would run that at all 3 schools. So the education certainly does become a little bit of a problem for us. And we rate highly at the schools regardless for our 5-star, and just obtain 3s without our credential in, simply because of COVID. But we would love to know how there's a plan in place that says, okay, so our staff are working on their bachelor's degree, and how long do they have to get it before in order to become another partner?
Thanks, Anna. And I will say you all were excellent partners in the past, and we would certainly extend and be grateful for that opportunity to work with you again. Paula Dixon put right in the chat that there really is policy that does allow 2 years for completion of a bachelor's. It's a really tight timeline depending on how far along you are. And so it doesn't exclude it, but know that we're trying to maintain the level of quality required by the Department of Education for the GSRP program. That credentialing comes along with it. But there are some exceptions to that. There are some supports to get folks credentialed and in those positions. So it's a great example of a community partner that may with a little more time and planning, unfortunately, right, the timing is hard. This is somewhat of an expected decision and a quick decision from TCAPS. And so it hasn't given us lots of time to be planful about response.
Okay. Josie, did you have a question?
Can you unmute her, Missy?
Let me give it a whirl. I can ask you to unmute and give you a button to hit, which hopefully is easier. There we go. Oh, we're still having trouble hearing you. I wonder if your audio was connected to the other device. Do you want to type it in the chat, or do you have that option? Okay, we'll figure it out. All right, well, are there any other questions? We'll give Josie a second. You just yell whenever you've got it, Josie, and we'll let you on.
I did have a question. I may have not heard it. I had to help a child. I think I heard that letters were sent out to possible agencies to help with the GSRP program. Has anybody shown interest in doing so? And if so, one of my concerns is having, I heard that if Munson picks it up, they do their classes at NMC. And that would require a lot of parents having to drive to multiple schools. And I live on the other side of town. I guess I don't know where that stands on that.
Thanks, Camera. That's a really good question. So I did say that an initial step that we took was to send letters to licensed childcare providers that met our current GSRP criteria. So if they have 3-star or higher, we send them a letter to say, hey, wonder if you'd be interested in being a partner with GSRP. We did have, we've had 2 conversations with community partners. Nobody who is interested in everything that GSRP at TCAPS has set aside, right? So it's 7 classrooms there that we would be looking to refill. We have heard from some of our other local school districts that may have interest. Now, this is both good and bad, right? So one of the local districts that inquired has had a waiting list for kids in their community. We have a process, like a hold harmless process. So once you're allocated slots, you can give them back, but we won't take them away from you as the ISD, because you have to buy classroom supplies and you hired a teacher, right? So once you have slots, you keep slots. So since we've been stable for so long, any of those districts that have been on waiting lists are now beginning to think about how they might choose to apply for additional slots. Now that's really good for those local districts outside of TCAPS that are interested. That's not very good necessarily for families with diversity trying to access programming. You know, for instance, I Sunday's paper may be more amenable to Traverse City residents than others, right? So if it were, for instance, Lake Ann Elementary, right? Dana, I'm thinking you're right on the border, and so that might be an appropriate solution for your GSRP question, right? But a family in the center of Traverse City, Lake Ann is probably a terrible answer for that family, right? Or, you know, Mill Creek is the other side of Grand Traverse County, right? So maybe families who were at Quartade, that could be an appropriate solution for their childcare need.
Poof, she warned me this might happen. All right, well, oh, there you are, Yvonne, you're back, I think.
Or I am. I'll try one more. Can you hear me?
There you go. I can hear you now.
Okay. I warned Missy, I live in the middle of the woods. My internet connection is often really bad, so I apologize. My apologies. So before I was zoomed out of our Zoom, I was just sharing that it's an application process. So we take into account capacity to serve, so and quality.
Okay, Missy, I'm going to try. Can you hear me?
There you are. You're on, Josie. All right, we lost Yvonne, but we got Josie.
I know.
So
well, we finally figured it out here. I had to leave for a minute momentarily and get the microphone on my end. Anyway, I'm afraid I probably missed the bottom line for TCAPS, and that's what I'm really trying to figure out, because I attended that board meeting last Monday, June 9th. And of course, at that time, they were saying that they were working with the TBA ISD and the other service providers in the Traverse City area, such as Munson and NMC, to find an alternative provider. And I just want to check on the status of that, whether any other providers have come forward to take TCAPS slots, whether they're going to, you know, accommodate those kids at TCAP schools or at NMC or Munson or whatever, you know, that's a secondary point. But first, we need to know, are the kids going to be taken care of? And then secondly, Yvonne has mentioned this letter or survey she sent out 2 weeks ago. What is the deadline for these providers to respond by? Do we have any preliminary results?
Great questions. How's my internet now? Can you hear me okay?
now we can. There we go.
Okay. Great questions. Thank you for those. So response rate is low. We don't have any partners who have requested at this point in time those additional slots. We've had 2 conversations of some interest. The timeline is about to be re-extended. We would normally call this quits by this time. Thanks, Paula. Any better? A little better? Great suggestion. So we're going to extend the deadline. Given the fact that we've had a low response rate, we want to make sure that we have the best partner to move forward with. But I can't confirm any partner at this time who's come forward. And the ones who are in some level of consideration are asking for a classroom, 5 slots, so small numbers, nobody to come in and operate a comprehensive 7, 8 classroom program like TCAPS.
Would you say that's because of space and qualified teachers?
So
Anne is nodding like, yeah.
For Anna, for sure, right? We had that conversation. So the credentials are big, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the primary reason community-based providers don't apply. And we have great community providers. So it's one of the barriers. I also think we're in a pandemic. The timing is tricky, right? So it's a fast turnaround time. We don't have a state budget for 2021, so we don't even know for certain that our flat funding from the state will be so flat this year. We're hopeful that it's not a good thing to be hopeful for flat funding, but that's what we're hoping for at this time. So I think it's sort of a perfect storm of challenges for folks, right? It's an aggressive timeline with short notice, an uncertain economic challenge predicted for the fall, and preschool and childcare are hard. This is hard work that people are doing to give a great start to kids. So lots of reasons, I think, Suzanne, but you've hit on a couple of them.
I think we're also coming into situations where there's 5- and 6-year-olds that are also needing care right now. And that's a big reason that our slots are filled. With the TCAP summer camps backing off, with Kingsley schools backing off, and just other people really limiting their spaces due to the pandemic, we're finding that we actually increased our capacity, not capacity, but age range, because there was just so many children that needed to have care and parents had to get back to work. So with school quitting, those kinds of things. And now we're getting a lot of questions. What happens if they do AB days? And those are more for their school age kids. So that's why my class sizes or my spaces are incredibly limited at this point. And we have a huge wait list. And, you know, I think quality definitely plays a role in that, but I also believe that the other part is certainly the unknown. And I know that Munson hasn't opened yet at any of their locations. And so there's just a great influx of that. So I've been trying to see what it looks like how many children we could. We've actually thought about what other funding that we could apply for. It wouldn't be GSRP funding, and I don't want to take away from that, but funding that would help alleviate costs for these families that were GSRP families if we couldn't necessarily become a partner at that point. Just to kind of help with that solution of the lower income and those who are sitting at that 250 or less of poverty level.
Missy?
Yes. Josie, you're back.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Okay, so I do have another follow-up question. Can you see me and hear me?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just was curious if if you are aware of any efforts by anybody in the community, whether it's the TVISD or TCAPS, to maybe get some grants or partnerships with local organizations like Rotary Charities, Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation, who might be able to help at least bridge this year. You know, what TCAP's administrators presented last week is that they're projecting a $125,000 deficit if they were to continue the program in 2020 to 2021. So I just wondered if you're aware of any other efforts to find partners who could work with TCAPS to, you know, fill that deficit for them, and then they could continue to provide the service.
So I try really hard not to speak on behalf of TCAPS, but my understanding is that the $125,000 deficit is an infrastructure challenge for how their staff are hired through the district. So those are they're long-term challenges, and my understanding is that that wasn't a consideration. So it wasn't that they were looking. So if the request to me was, can you help us to raise money? We would have been happy to support some efforts to backfill that $125,000 gap in services. At this point, the board has taken action to not move forward. So I'm not at a place where I'm fundraising or supporting TCAPS in fundraising because it wasn't the board or administrative ask. The acknowledgement was that they were not moving forward with the program. So I'm not aware. I would yield certainly to Missy and Mary for any contact they've had with TCAPS in that arena. But by the time it came to me, it was really as simple as they weren't going to apply for 2021 funding.
Josie, you're muted. If you'd like, I know there's so much to learn on this topic, and I realize there's a lot of fine points that people are trying to wrap their brains around. And we certainly have more opportunities that we can schedule to talk. In the interest of time, we are in our last 6 minutes, and I really was hopeful we could have more time to really get into our advocacy brainstorm. And feel free, if you have a question that you didn't get to ask at this point, or you'd like some clarification on something that you did ask, feel free to enter that in the chat so that we can go back through the notes and address your question specifically. So in this, we have 5 minutes, and I really do want to respect your time, and I don't really feel comfortable moving right into an advocacy. I really feel strongly that our advocacy brainstorm, to give it the time that it's due, we really need to have a separate time to be together to do that. This overview call is recorded and will be available to anyone who's not here tonight to get up to speed, so that we might have a larger group to be part of this advocacy brainstorm piece. I know that was an outcome that many of you said you were looking forward to. So I feel strongly that we do need to devote the time to that. And as our hour is up, we will come up with another time. If this time frame works well for you, or you would like to suggest another time frame for this meeting, I know it feels late for some of us, maybe it feels early for others. If you'd like to suggest a meeting time that's better for you, you can also put that in the chat. So if it's okay with the group, I would like to just pause on this part of the agenda, and we will break it into a 2-meeting kind of a piece, where we can really work through and have some better discussion about what this means moving forward for parents and developing a collective voice around this issue. So with that, I'm going to jump right to our closure and gratitude. And if you could, just before we go, I'd like you to just share one word about how you're feeling about what you've learned in tonight's discussion. So I'm going to go back to showing the whole group so that we could see each other. And if you wouldn't mind sharing just one word, how you're feeling about what you've heard here tonight. I'm going to stop sharing, and here we are back again. Would anyone like to start? I can pick on people again. I'm happy to do that, or I'll try to keep my eye on the chat too.
How about I say outside of the box? Let's just get outside of the box.
Okay.
And community.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Mine was going to be problem solving and community.
Okay. All right.
I have 2 words: frustrated, because TCAPS threw everybody under the bus, but hopeful that we can come up with some kind of a solution that will benefit the majority of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe wheels turning.
Who's that? Tammy? Tammy, go ahead.
So for me, it would be wheels turning, just a lot of thinking and solutions.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think that mine would be hopeful and community for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Rachel. Anyone else? Paula, did you want to share something? Okay, that's fine.
I think mine would be frustrated for sure, that we didn't have time to figure things out, that TCAP said that they tried to figure things out for us but didn't, and scared for sure.
I appreciate your honesty, Camera. It's certainly not all, you know, hopeful in community. These are anxious times without a GSRP problem. So thank you for sharing. Anyone else who didn't have a chance to share one word about tonight's information?
I'm just going to say I will be following up with some of you. Since there's a journalist on the line and I'm running for school board, I got to be careful with what I say, but I will be in touch.
I think what your one word then might be curious. You have more wonderings. Okay. Thank you. Well, it is 8:59. I look forward to keeping this ball rolling with parents. Your voices mean so much to this community, and the fact that you're willing to come on a beautiful summer night and just sit and sweat this one out and talk about it and learn about it, that's really meaningful, and it will drive the message behind what we can co-create as a parent body to influence decision makers here. So thank you. And again, look for more information on the Great Start Parents Facebook page and the 5 to 1 Neighborhood Network page. We usually share similar information on both pages, but there will be more meeting information soon to follow, and we will keep this conversation going. So thank you, everyone, and we'll keep chatting. Good night.
Well, so Missy, I think maybe Camera and Yvonne, we're going to stay on.
Okay, Camera and Yvonne, want to stay?
Had some more questions, and Yvonne volunteered to stay. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
great.
Happy to stay. Missy, maybe you want to turn the recording off.
Yep, I can do that.
Yeah. And then would